The April 23rd, 2018 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ansello?
Here.
Mr. Baroth?
Here.
Mrs. Conley?
Here.
Chairman Delahanty?
Here.
Mrs. Draw is excused. Mr. Felder?
Here.
Mr. Hebert?
Here.
Ms. Cayley?
Here.
Mr. Marionetti?
Here.
Mr. Morelli? Mr. Rocco?
Here.
President Carbone?
Here.
Okay. Will Legislator Rocco please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any speakers signed up for public forum?
There are not.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to address the committee at this time? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the minutes from the March 27th, 2018 meeting before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. The next item on the agenda is new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 18-0126.
Moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0127.
Moved by Legislator Rocco, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0128.
Moved by Legislator Ansello, second by Legislator Connolly. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0130.
Moved by Legislator Connolly, second by Legislator Marionetti. Is there any discussion? Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, how was it that the rent per square foot was was agreed upon?
Through the chair, it's not a negotiated process. The TSA tells you what the rental rate will be, and that's what you pay, or that's what you receive.
Wow. Okay. We should do that more often. Try that elsewhere.
Through the chair, I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. I don't have all the paperwork in front of me. What are the total square footage?
Through the chair, I believe it's 495 square feet.
Thank you. And what was the past square footage where they were prior to this?
Through the chair, I believe it was 380 or 370 square feet. It was smaller because TSA now requires a room for their server, a secured room, and we gave them a space that was 150 square feet for that. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0131.
Moved by Legislator Marionetti, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Any discussion? Legislator Baroth.
Through the chair of the administration, I just have a quick clarification question. From the prior committee discussing this, there was mentioned that only these two companies or corporations have the qualifications to provide these respiratory therapy services, but at some particular point in the future, there may be another company that develops this capacity, and that's why we have the language of any other qualified temporary service. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you. And through the chair of the administration, even if another qualified temporary service agency is discovered or they develop the capacity, we will not be exceeding the $300,000 maximum, correct? Through the chair?
Through the chair, that's correct. $300,000 maximum.
Thank Thank you.
Okay. Legislator Morelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, am I correct in understanding that the increase from 100,000 to 300,000 is because it essentially 100,000 wasn't enough money to get qualified work? Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct for the most part. The primary problem is that we have vacant positions at the hospital. We have not been able to successfully recruit professionals for and retain them.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, what would it take in order for us to fill those positions and retain qualified candidates?
The first thing it would take would be to increase the number of candidates in the marketplace. There's a market-wide shortage of respiratory therapists, similar to the market-wide shortage to professional nursing staff.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, would it be fair to say that if the what it was that Monroe Community Hospital was able to pay employees, we would be able to get qualified candidates?
Through the chair, in actuality, our current rate of pay for respiratory therapists is competitive in the marketplace, especially at the high end of the pay scale.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that we're not able to retain. Do we have a significant number of employees who we hire, train, and then leave for other jobs?
Through the chair, recruit is probably a better term as far as our lack of success. We have had a couple of respiratory therapists recently retire, but the recruitment is the initial problem.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, is it fair to say that if there was more money, you could increase your recruitment efforts?
You can always, through the chair, we could always increase the recruitment efforts. I don't know if the productivity of that effort would be viable because, again, it's a matter of how many qualified candidates are there in the marketplace.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Legislator Cayley?
Chairman, through you to the administration, just briefly back on the recruitment process, have you been able to identify why, if it's not so much the income for the new therapist, what are we lacking here in this community to recruit
Through the
therapists?
chair, the primary problem is that the local colleges don't graduate enough people and don't have enough training programs.
All right, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Legislator Barat?
Administration, I just overheard, and I want to make sure I'm correct. Was it just stated that we don't have enough local colleges providing training programs for the respiratory therapists? Is that correct, through the chair?
To the chair, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And through the chair of the administration, do we have any local colleges providing training for respiratory therapists?
Through the chair, I believe that the nearest training program is Genesee Junior College.
Genesee Junior College. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0132.
Moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Rockow. Is there any discussion? Legislator Barat?
Through the chair of the administration, how many years have we been utilizing contract forensic pathologists?
This is a difficult question. This is, I think, the third year with this particular group. My name is Bob Zerby. I'm the Chief Investigator with the Medical Examiner's Office. I've been there since 1990, and I know back in the 90s there was contract physicians, so it's kind of been an on-again, off-again type of practice.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, how long has it been an on-again practice?
I believe for the last 3 years.
3 years, thank you. Through the chair of the administration, you stay with this group of forensic medical examiners, and I heard earlier they're from the New York State Office of Medical Examiners. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through the chair of the New York City Office of the
New
Chief
York
Medical
City.
Examiner. Right.
Thank you. And through the chair of the administration, are these the 5 statement individuals we contracted with for the past 3 years?
That's correct.
That's correct. Through the chair of the administration, it wasn't asked, and so it could have been stated. Does this contract amount of $85,000 include amounts that might be associated with travel, hotel, and food costs?
Through the chair, those costs are borne by the contractors.
Okay, so in fact, in a sense, yes, they are included.
Correct.
Thank you. And then finally, through the chair of the administration, in the referral, it talks about paid at the agreed rate with the aggregate amount not to exceed $85,000. What is the exact agreed upon rate, through the chair?
Through the chair, I don't recall those exact numbers, but I can research that and get back to you.
I would appreciate that if you could. I'd like to have that. And actually, it turns out I do have one final question. Through the chair of the administration, you stated that we've been working with this a group of contractors for the past 3 years. Were there any local respondents or to this, or anyone local who performed these services through the chair?
Through the chair, there were not.
Okay. There were no respondents, correct, through the chair?
Through the chair, correct.
Thank you.
Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, how often is it that this company is traveling to Monroe County to perform these services?
Through the chair, generally once a month.
Okay, thank you.
Legislator Barat.
Thank you. I have to apologize again. I forgot about something. Through the chair of the administration, at the prior committee meeting, there was a public speaker who suggested we outsource more simple tests. What do you think of that idea, through the chair?
Through the chair, I think that's actually the toxicology one versus the pathology one. Again, generally the pathologists perform the examinations. The equivalency to you perhaps would be if you see your PCP, and then there's laboratory work. The toxicology is the laboratory portion, the pathologists are the PCP portion.
Yes. So through the chair of the administration, so in effect what you're saying is that suggestion should have been addressed to referral 140?
Through the chair, I'd say yes.
Okay, now I'll follow up then. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0133.
Moved by Legislator Rockow, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Legislator Barat.
Chair of the administration, in the referral, it talks about how this contract will pay for public health assistance to, quote, improve the compliance rates for appointments of existing and new WIC clients. Does that simply mean improving the number of clients who actually show up for these appointments, through the chair?
Through the chair, excuse me, through the chair. There is actually a requirement that certain high-risk clients be seen within 10 days of their referral or their phone call to request an appointment. And so that's what it's referring to. So we have an inadequate number of nutritionists in order to keep up with the requests for appointments and stay within that 10-day time period consistently 100% of the time.
So through the chair of the administration, you must have then, you must track this, you must have some measurables to determine your success rate, correct, through the chair?
Through the chair, yes, we do.
I would actually appreciate a copy of the your success rate for those appointments being kept within the 10-day time frame, if that's possible, through the chair.
Through the chair, yes, that's possible.
And can I have that before the next full ledge meeting?
Yes, through the chair.
Thank you very much.
Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. This is not the first time as I'm reading through this, not the first time that we have had outside sourcing for the nutritionists and the assistants. Is this account for additional over what we would have used last year in terms of staffing between county employees and agency employees?
Through the chair, in my tenure as the division manager, this is the first time that I'm aware that we're doing any contracting for nutritionists.
Okay. Then through the chair to the administration, usually when I ask this question, let me just start off. Usually when I ask this question, if we're using staffing through an agency, it generally is less expensive for the county to do it this way. Is it correct in assuming that staffing through this agency will be less expensive than having county employees?
Through the chair, not necessarily.
Okay. Then through the chair, with this, obviously we had the option to renew for 2 additional one-year terms. With the folks coming in from the agency, is there ever an opportunity to basically recruit from those that come in, have trained with the program, and are good at what they do to get them over into county employment?
Through the chair, yes, there is that opportunity. If we should have a county vacancy, we would prefer to recruit from someone from the agency that we've trained rather than to go out into the community and try to train a new person.
Okay, thank you. And then through the chair, because of our need, do we have vacancies at this time for these positions, or do we not have enough people to handle the cases?
Through the chair, both of those are true.
Okay.
We have one vacancy that we're currently recruiting from, and even given full staffing, we don't have enough nutritionists on staff to see our current caseload, which is assigned to us by the state. Our assigned caseload is 8,500 participants.
Thank you. And then through the chair, while you're certainly not a fortune teller, do you expect that this trend will continue over the next, say, the 2 additional one-year terms?
Through the chair, as you said, I'm not a fortune teller. However, I don't anticipate that we would suddenly be able to support our caseload without this additional assistance.
Thank you. And then just a statement. Why I agree with this, and it's a good program, and I want to get as many people into the program and getting the services that they need, I would urge the county going forward that if this is going to be an ongoing trend, then we need to increase the number of county nutritionists and assistants to handle the caseload versus having to go out and do the contracting. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0134.
Moved by Legislator Ansello and seconded by Legislator Connolly. Legislator Baroff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, how much money is currently budgeted for this program in 2018?
I will have to get back to you with the answer to that question.
Okay. Then as a follow-up, well, actually an add-on to that question is, through the chair, how much do we expect the New York State Department of Health to invest into this program as well?
Through the chair, we're going to have to get back to you with the answer to that question as well.
Okay. I just very much appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administration, I'm not sure that I heard Mr. Broth's question, but basically understanding that the state has handled a number of the requirements for this, what exactly is the county's responsibility in the program?
The county, in 2013, the state assumed fiscal administration of the program in an effort to provide mandate relief to the counties. This means as part of this transformation, Monroe County had to enter into a provider agreement with New York State Bureau of Early Intervention to deliver service coordination. We also are unique that we hold a role as local administrator of the program for the county as well. So we serve a dual role for the county.
All right, thank you. Then through the chair, we don't do active recruitment for services.
Through the chair, can you clarify that question?
I'm not sure how to do that. We have a registry of providers for these services?
That's correct.
And thank you through the chair. Is that a state registry or is that a locally done registry?
Through the chair. So the state is responsible for securing providers to deliver services to the children. However, in an effort to assist, because of recent capacity issues, the county also takes effort to secure providers.
Thank you, and that's great. And through the chair, finally, are we able to handle the needs of the families and the children within Monroe County at this point?
Through the chair, for the service, the county currently is approved to deliver services, which is service coordination. We do also have a capacity issue in relation to service coordination. We have 13 service coordinators on staff at Monroe County, and the caseloads, or the referral volume of referrals coming in is about 1,600 to 1,800 referrals annually that come in.
Thank you. And certainly from my aspect, I appreciate everything that's being done for early intervention through the county, and I know that it's a hard task. Thank you.
Legislator Morelli.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the administration, would the administration consider this a funded or unfunded mandate by New York State?
Through the chair, early intervention is considered an unfunded mandate.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, why is it that we would consider this unfunded if we're receiving money to do it?
Through the chair, so the state reimburses the cost of services at 49%. And in 2013, when the state assumed fiscal administration of the program, there is a responsibility of providers to seek third-party reimbursement for children who have health care coverage for those services that they are authorized to receive.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0135.
Moved by Legislator Conley, second by Legislator Marionetti. Legislator Cayley.
Through you to the administration, could you illustrate for us how you recruit the individuals that go into this program?
Through the chair, this particular grant was a competitive grant under the Medical Reserve Corps. We recruit volunteers through various trainings and briefings throughout the community when we do exercises or trainings or real responses. For this particular grant funding, we developed a project with the Centers for Disability Rights. It is a competitive grant and submitted it to NACCHO for their approval. So we work with CDR we are going to be continuing to work with CDR to determine different types of preparedness kits, training for residents that work with CDR.
Thank you. And then just finally, say with this particular grant, do you retain previously trained people? Is it more of an issue to retain people and then train more, or to train and then train again? I'm trying to figure out what the retention might be.
Well, see, this is, through the chair, this is a little bit different grant project affiliated with this $12,500. I mean, the Medical Reserve Corps itself is an ongoing recruiting effort. We have new recruits. We have people that drop out, that move away, or are not in, we don't have enough exercises for them. They want more. But for this particular grant, this was a competitive grant. We had to come up with a project to submit it to NACCHO. Just to give you a quick example on a stat, there's 936 Medical Reserve Corps units, and only 11 of them out of 240 applied for the grant, and only 11 of them were awarded the full $12,500 grant. So this is kind of a unique opportunity for us to help our access and functional needs and disabilities community. We haven't really engaged them in this particular project before, so we're working with CDR to develop what are the needs in that community, further work with CDR and other like communities to help them so they're more resilient. Part of the grant in general is promote community resilience, and our focus for this particular monies will be that access and functional needs and disability community.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0136.
Moved by Legislator Marionetti, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just to explain my vote, I'd like to credit Carrie Andrews, former member of the county legislature, leader of the minority party here, for her work on getting Monroe County to becoming a breastfeeding-friendly community. And so I think that the acceptance of this grant is important to the work that she did, and I'd like to thank her and commend her for her work on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Legislator Barak.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, what is the role of the county in this grant and contract?
Through the chair, the county has a relatively small role in this particular grant. It's a University of Rochester Medical Center grant, and our role is to provide some lactation consultant services for the baby cafes, some peer counselors who will work on-site when needed at the baby cafes, and some consultant work in order to further the goal of creating some lactation-friendly sites for employees with a particular focus from our perspective on county buildings.
Thank you. So through the chair of the administration, it's fair to say then that the just under $9,000 will go to paying our county employees who are consultants to provide these services through the chair?
Through the chair, generally, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So through the chair of the administration, I think that is a wonderful thing. I'm a little saddened, though, that we have to rely upon the University of Rochester to pay for this, but it's better than nothing. So in that sense, I'm glad that we're moving forward on this one way or the other, and I'm glad the University of Rochester is willing to step up to help out. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Cayley.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I'm correct, this is with regards to the baby cafes.
Through the chair, yes, that is one of the focuses of this grant.
All right, thank you. And then could you answer through the chair how the locations were decided upon?
Through the chair, the grant required attention to specific zip codes within the city and the town of Greece. And so the sites were chosen based on their convenience and nearness to the populations that are intended to be served.
Thank you. Could you give me those zip codes, please, through the chair?
Through the chair, I don't have the zip codes at the tip of my tongue, but I can certainly provide them.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0137.
Moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Rockow. Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, is this a vacant parcel of land?
Through the chair, yes, it is.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, is this waterfront property?
Through the chair, no, it is not.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, can you explain why it is that the county took or is agreeing to the $15,000 for the purchase price of this parcel when the assessment is at $36,500?
Through the chair, it was determined through market research that the value of the property was at $15,000. It went to public auction twice with no successful bidders, and the current buyer saw it on our website and made the offer of $15,000.
So, through you, Mr. Chairman, if the $36,000 that it's assessed with is generally, that assessment is based on market conditions, you're suggesting that the assessment is incorrect?
Through the chair, the last time that the town of Greece did a townwide update was 8 years ago, so the value could have changed between 8 years ago and present.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, this is an issue that the town of Greece is overassessed.
Again, through the chair, whether the assessment was, reviewed in the past 8 years or not, I'm, not privy to that knowledge. That would be, up to the Grease Assessor's Office.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Legislator Baroff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the Chair of the Administration, you mentioned that there were 2 failed auctions before it was successfully sold to someone who saw the property. How long have we been in possession of this piece of property?
Through the Chair, January of 2017.
Thank you. And through the Chair of the Administration, were there any costs associated with the maintenance of that property?
Through the Chair, I would have to double check and see if there was any grass cutting last summer. If there was, it would have been at a $25 per trip cost, so maybe a couple $100.
Through the Chair of the Administration, I would actually want to know for sure how much that the costs associated with this property are. Could you provide that before the next full legislature meeting?
Through the Chair, yes.
Thank you. And finally, through the Chair of the Administration, of those costs, whatever they may be, a couple $100 less, whatever, through the Chair, do you know whether or not the town of Greece or the county was liable for those costs? Through the Chair.
Through the Chair, if the grass was cut, it would have been done by the county under a contract that we have.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0138.
Moved by Legislator Rockow, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Is there any discussion? Legislator Baroff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Administration, is this parcel vacant land or is any sort of objects on it?
Through the Chair, it's vacant landlocked land.
Thank you. And that might lead to my second question is, where is this address located, being that it's landlocked? Through the Chair.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Where is this address located?
Through the Chair, Hillcrest is off of South Clinton, below Highland Avenue.
Yes, and through the Chair of the Administration, what would be the nearest address on Hillcrest that would be associated with this landlocked parcel?
Well, the buyers at 12 Summit Drive are just to the south of the parcel.
Thank you. So through the Chair of the Administration, it's fair to say then this is actually them increasing their footprint. Through the Chair.
Through the Chair, that's correct. All of the adjoining owners were sent letters requesting if they had an interest before this purchase offer was finalized.
Thank you. So through the Chair of the Administration, I'm assuming the buyer was the only respondent then?
Through the Chair, no. There were a couple of respondents, and this was the highest offer.
So through the Chair, we benefit from a bidding war then?
I don't know. Through the Chair, I don't know that I'd consider it a bidding war, but
a bidding skirmish.
But they were asked to provide their highest offer within a 30-day period.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0139.
Moved by Legislator Ansello and seconded by Legislator Connolly. Legislator Morelli.
Mr. Chairman, through the Administration, was there not a local company that could have performed this work for us? Isn't this on 140? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the wrong one.
Okay.
Overexcited, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Legislator Baroff.
In the referral, it talks about there being currently there's interest and penalties charged on the erroneous amounts. Am I correct to assume that those figures will be erased or adjusted through the Chair?
Through the Chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0140.
Moved by Legislator Connolly, seconded by Legislator Marionetti. Legislator Borelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask my question this time. Was there not a local company that could have performed this work for us?
Through the chair, there are no local forensic toxicology laboratories
Okay.
beyond ours,
I'm sorry, could you
beyond
repeat
Monroe
that?
counties.
Okay. And through you, Mr. Chairman, is there not a company in New York State that qualified to do this? Because I see this is a company from Pennsylvania.
Right. And through the chair, again, there are no forensic toxicology laboratories that are essentially open to public work.
Thank you very much.
Legislator Broth.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, I'm listening in on the Human Services Committee meeting. It was mentioned that this is seen as being a temporary situation. Is that correct, that we anticipate this going away within about a year when the two new toxicologists are up to snuff? Through the chair?
Through the chair, ideally, yes.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, you said ideally, do we anticipate something that might cause this not to occur? Through the chair?
Through the chair, the current trend on the overdose situation with opioids, it's difficult to predict where we'll be exactly in a year from now.
Okay, fair enough. Through the chair of the administration, it was also mentioned that we want to keep cases that might require court action local, which makes sense to me. In an earlier referral, I asked a question of whether or not a suggestion of keeping outsourcing simpler tests might be a wise thing to do, and I asked for the administration's response to that. What would your response to that be?
Through the chair, it's difficult to assess what a simpler case is. You essentially, the process is basically a screen is run, and once the screen is run, you establish what substances are present, and that kind of dictates the complexity of the case. So there's no real way of teasing that out. It would be pretty much undoable.
Thank you. So through the chair of the administration, essentially, we're using cases that are coming from outside of the county because that's a clear definable distinction as opposed to trying to predict if a case is going to become complicated or not. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through the chair, say the question again because I don't think that's correct.
Okay, fair enough. My understanding then is that we don't think it's a good idea to necessarily say we will outsource simple tests because once you do a screen, it may get complicated or it may not get complicated. We simply don't know until you do the screen. And therefore, it's not really a good way to, you can't really outsource simple tests. It just doesn't work like that. As opposed to outsourcing cases that don't belong to the county in the first place because they're not going to go to court here, through the chair.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you. I was right. Okay, so through the chair of the administration, it was mentioned that there would be a significant loss of savings if another provider had been picked. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through the analysis we did, that is correct.
Thank you. Would that loss of savings been a loss of savings to us or a loss of savings to other counties that would utilize his services?
Through the chair, that'd be both.
Both. Could you explain how we would have a loss of savings through the chair?
Through the chair, the cases that are going to be held in Monroe County, for Monroe County, are cases likely to have some type of either criminal activity associated with them, or they're going to be cases where it appears that the police agency interested might be seeking prosecution of a drug dealer. We are going to send out about 400 to 450 Monroe County cases, so some of Monroe County cases are in fact being sent out as well.
Thank you. And through the chair of the administration, just so I'm clear, then we're sending out 400 to 450 Monroe County cases. How many other county cases will we be sending out through the chair?
Last year, there were, through the chair, 290 cases from other counties, so assuming, again, a similar number for this year, less the cases we received so far this year, it would be some number less than 290 of other county cases.
Thank you. In addition, through the chair of the administration, it was mentioned in the early committee meeting that travel costs are not included in this contract. What is the estimate for the travel cost, and from what line might those expenses come?
Through the chair, I think you're crossing referrals. There is no travel associated with the laboratory contracts.
Okay, that's good to hear then. And I had one final question, which I'm blanking on at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Don't know.
Well, I'm going to go to Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, when you say there is no travel costs, so there'd be no indication, there'd be no need for anyone conducting the tests to testify or anything? I know that these two referrals have been confused, so I just want to make sure that I'm straight.
Okay, through the chair, when samples are acquired at the Monroe County office of the medical examiner, They'll be shipped to the laboratory, that they're actually included in the cost of the analyses, and then the results are sent back to us electronically, so there's no real testing costs. Should there be some need for a toxicologist, an analyst to present testimony relative to their findings, then there would be a fee associated with that. There would be.
There would, someone coughed, I didn't quite hear it. There would be, through the chair.
Through the chair, that's correct.
My ears are plugged, I'm sorry. I've had a cold. So there would be travel costs, and they would be covered by Monroe County, through the chair.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Right.
And I might point out, that is the reason why we're going to retain cases likely to become criminal here, so that travel fee issue won't become an
Thank you.
issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Legislator Bra.
Thank you. I recall what my question was. It was mentioned in the earlier committee meeting that there were other qualified companies out there, but that we selected Willowbrook because it was 5 hours away and that other counties had prior relationship with them. Is that correct, through the chair?
That is correct, through the chair.
Well, if that is correct, then my question is, how can we deem that the NMS Labs is a sole source provider for these services? What was the rationale behind that? If other companies are capable of doing this work, it's just that others have prior relationships. Through the chair.
Through the chair, essentially, there's pretty much 3 games in town when it comes to these laboratories. We looked at the laboratory that, again, proximity was important for the issue of travel, should the issue of travel arise. The idea that we are modifying our agreements with the other counties to address the fact that they now are going to have to directly deal with the laboratory for the services. In order to keep it as streamlined as possible and to mitigate the inconvenience that it would be costing for everyone across the line, it appeared that as these counties already had generally a good relationship with this laboratory, that they had demonstrated good service through these companies, or I'm sorry, through these counties, and that and generally it wasn't such a large shift from what the status quo was. Through the chair, I think it's important to recognize, there was questions earlier relative to the number of these laboratories in New York State. There are other forensic toxicology laboratories in New York. They're associated with medical examiner's office, but they are in a similar crunch as we are and are in fact using these laboratories as well. So maintaining kind of the same page and not branching out on our own seemed to be the most reasonable thing to do.
Through the chair of the administration, I'm just a little uncomfortable with that because I understand that what you're saying is that there's a limited market out there. I understand what you're saying in regards to the prior relationship being in place, but we're supposed to utilize a sole source provider only for those cases where it's a clear-cut situation where we cannot do better. And the reason we have contracts and we put things out to bid is to determine if in fact maybe there is a better deal out there, and we've circumvented that process by doing the sole source providing. If nothing else, it seems to me that if you put a request for proposals, you could easily include proximity to. And allow for the possibility that perhaps something is out there we're unaware of. And so I understand the decision-making process, but I think that we've taken a shortcut here that we should not have done. I'm still going to vote for this referral because I think we need to do this. This clearly has to be done. But I'm disappointed in the process, and I would urge us to not utilize sole source provider status for cases where we clearly have other companies out there that can do the work, as the administration stated earlier. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0141.
Moved by Legislator Marionetti, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Before we begin discussion, I would like to ask Monroe County Chief Financial Officer Robert Franklin to give us some background information on this referral and the next one as well, as they both seem closely related, and why they're coming to us, this committee, as matters of importance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the liberty to frame my commentary within the constraints of both referrals taken at the same time. They are two separate referrals, very, very closely related. I will try to be as clear as possible. The referral 180141, Mr. Chairman, is essentially a partial redo of the prior resolution that Monroe County's legislature took back in December to accept the assets and liabilities of the Greater Rochester Outdoor Sports Facility Corporation, Grossific. That December meeting was the culmination of a very long process. Frankly, wasn't even clear if there would have been a referral submitted in December of 2017 or at some point in 2018. But Mr. Chairman, this referral and the next really are all related to the dissolution of Grossific as an LDC. The original referral, 452 of 2017, requested of the legislature to accept the assets and liabilities essentially into an internal service fund. Mr. Chairman, this gets a little technical. I do apologize. An internal service fund is something of a proprietary fund who sells its goods and services to another governmental fund or another governmental entity or component unit. That is very specific and particular in accounting standards. Frontier Field has been a building account within the internal service fund for several years and was leased to Grossific and then subleased to Rochester Community Baseball. Grossific is a component unit of Comida, which is a component unit of Monroe County, and therefore a governmental type entity, and it was appropriate to track the activity of Frontier Field in an internal service fund. Upon the merger of Grossific into Monroe County government, and this is a merger, Mr. Chairman, although the entire dissolution, the approach was taken simply as a dissolution from a legal standpoint. From an accounting perspective, it's treated as a merger and acquisition, specifically a merger of governmental functions. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, because Rochester Community Baseball is the primary user of Frontier Field, our internal auditors, after several discussions with staff within our controller's office, came to the conclusion that the more appropriate interpretation of accounting standards is to treat Frontier Field not as an internal service fund serving other governmental units, but as a building within the general fund. That is very significant and has very important accounting ramifications. It's important that Monroe County's legislature be aware of it's important that the Monroe County legislature be aware of the significance of what it did in December versus what we are asking you to do now. It may not be important from a legal standpoint or have great commentary on a political campaign trail, but when it comes to banking and investors who buy Monroe County paper, our notes and our bonds, it's a very significant distinction. And we are before you today with this first referral to have Monroe County, as I said, a partial redo, so that instead of accepting the assets and liabilities into an internal service fund, it go to the general fund. And that is important so that the specific legislative intent and the required accounting treatment are complementary. Otherwise, what the legislature had authorized last December is not what we need to do in our financial statement preparation. Once the county legislature approves this first referral, Mr. Chairman, we must move to the next referral, 18-0142, to do a number of budget transfers. And that is important because the way the Frontier Field activities are accounted for today, and as they have been the past couple months, will be completely out of compliance with what you've just directed us to do in referral 141. both in 2017 actuals and in the 2018 budget. Because, Mr. Chairman, when this 2018 budget was put together, it was before we actually knew the dissolution of Grosefik would take place in December. And since it was appropriate to have this as an internal service fund in prior years, it made perfect sense to us that this would be an internal service fund in the 2018 budget. So the second referral, Mr. Chairman, authorizes a series of accounting and budgetary transfers both in the 2017 operating budget and the 2018 operating budget, so that the actual accounting and the legislative intent are complementary. If there are specific questions regarding the flow of dollars, I'd be happy to address those.
Okay. Are there any questions? Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. Mr. Franklin, is it then, are we essentially making it so that Frontier Field would act more as a, similar to that of like the county office building in terms of the way that we handle the accounting with vendors and whatnot? Is that essentially what we're doing here?
Ironically, Mr. Chairman, no.
Okay.
Had Frontier Field remained an internal service fund, my answer would have been yes. Monroe County Office Building is a building account within the internal service fund. This essentially, Mr. Chairman, removes Frontier Field and all the financial activities associated with having a baseball stadium out of the internal service fund, puts it in the general fund as a very similar fashion the way the Office of the Controller within Department of Finance is in the general fund.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Legislator Barra.
Thank you. Through the Chair of the Administration, you mentioned earlier that making this change is very significant. Can you please describe the nature of the change, the significance of the change from a willingness of people to buy Monroe County paper?
Mr. Chairman, it is really important from a financial and accounting perspective to remain consistent in all material respects to governmental accounting standards. If Monroe County were to move forward and treat Frontier Field activities as an internal service, they would not be in compliance with governmental accounting standards and would not be materially presented fairly in our financial statements. If Frontier Field, in all material respects, is not fairly represented in Monroe County's financial statements, our independent auditors, because the dollar value of the Frontier Field activities, may not issue an unmodified, or as we call, clean opinion on our financial statements, and instead, Mr. Chairman, offer a modified opinion.
Fair enough. So that makes sense to me. So it's not a question of whether it's internal or on the general line. It's simply a question of being consistent with what we say it is, correct, through the Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And then finally, through the Chair of the Administration, does this mean then that things like the rent associated with the Frontier Field will show up in the general service, the general line?
Mr. Chairman, neither the 2017 budget nor the 2018 operating budget actually contemplates a rent revenue. The terms of the 10-year lease Monroe County signed with Rochester Community Baseball essentially equates annual rent of $100,000 to an aggregate $1 million capital contribution to Frontier Field. And that aggregate $1 million contribution is to be assessed at the end of the 10-year lease.
So through the Chair of the Administration, while it won't show up right now, 10 years from now it will show up, correct, through the Chair?
Mr. Chairman, at the end of the 10-year lease, we will have to have another conversation internally to decide whether it's more appropriate to reflect that rent contribution in the general fund or in the capital funds that are maintained for Frontier Field improvements?
Well, through the chair of the administration, the rent won't show up anyhow, so I'm not sure it's going to be a relevant question. But 10 years from now, assuming we're all still in our places, we'll have that conversation. Well, I know, I'll be trying that.
Legislator Kaley.
Chairman, well, if it couldn't get more complicated, certainly it is complicated, but I understand the work that's been done on this. My question is, because of these changes, does it change any of the grants or whatever that might happen that would not be related to Rochester Community Baseball, but would be for events that were held at the field?
Mr. Chairman, this referral or the next one to be voted on in a few more minutes should have no material or financial impact on any of the grants that have previously been applied for or awarded by Empire State Development or Finger Lakes Economic Development.
Okay, through the chair, but you're saying previously that the function of how this is handled in the future will be different then?
Mr. Chairman, if my response was not as clear, let me further add that the general fund and the internal service fund, from a grant perspective, are both funds of Monroe County government and should be treated the same in any future grant application.
All right, thank you. And then lastly, through the chair, then because, granted, you wouldn't be auditing the rent, so to speak, however that for 10 years, would it be natural that this would go into a cycle and responsibility of the audit committee on a regular basis or semi-regular basis to look at how things are going a few years out?
Mr. Chairman, the audit committee of Monroe County meets on a biannual basis, a semi-annual basis, and a full audit plan of the ensuing fiscal year is presented to the audit committee, and the audit committee members, upon review of that audit plan, do have the opportunity to make comment and can add such commentary as an appendix to the audit plan.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0142.
Moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Rockow. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. All right. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There being no matters, the April 23rd, 2018 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will be held on Tuesday, May 22nd, 2018 at 6 p.m.